welcome to Real Reflection, Cinema's Societal Mirror. I'm Kevin.
And I'm Chris.
And today we're going to be talking to you about the Deadpool trilogy and maybe superheroes by way of that in general.
Yeah, because I think that I don't really know how you discuss, like, do an in-depth discussion about Deadpool, about the film series, without kind of talking about how it fits in with the larger narrative of comic book films, their rise over the last couple of decades. Because, like, Deadpool, from the very first film, all the humor in Deadpool is about how comic book movies have become ubiquitous by that point. Because the first film came out, I want to say it was 2017. I'm going to confirm that, right? 2016, actually.
2016, yeah.
Came out in 2016. And, you know, by this point, like, what Iron Man, which is was considered the official canonical star of the MCU.
It's like 2008.
That's 2008.
Yeah.
So we're already 8 years deep into comic book movies.
30 movies or something, probably by that point.
Somehow we were already 20 movies, 8 years, but 20 movies deep into what was the official MCU. That's not even counting the Fox movies, like the Fantastic Four films and other things, because that's what Deadpool was. Deadpool was owned by Fox at the time because he's an X-Men character.
Yeah, because really quickly in the 90s, Marvel Comics was going bankrupt and sold off the rights to all of their popular characters. Spider-Man, the X-Men, Blade, right? And was left with, like, the C-level characters, honestly. And that's what the MCU was started with. Iron Man, Captain America, these were not the flagship tentpole characters by any means.
No.
And it was a business move that maybe kept the company afloat at the time, but they did nothing but try to get those rights back for, like, the next 20, 30 years, you know? What we're seeing now with the Disney purchase of Marvel, the Disney purchase of Fox, right? Whatever they're doing with Sony right now, you know, like, they are actively trying to get those characters back because, you know, those were the popular money-making characters, you know, originally at least. That may not have been what it's turned into, which is interesting in and of itself. But yeah, this is Deadpool's. These movies are movies that are so connected to all these other movies, you know, characters, comics, that you can't talk about it without, you know, I feel like, you know, bringing in those waves and phases of the MCU.
Exactly.
You know,
I mean, you know, rewatching one. First of all, just a quick side note. If you had told me, as a comic book fan growing up before Iron Man came out in the MCU as we know it formed, if you had told me that one day Marvel was going to have this amazing film series that was going to dominate pop culture, and you told me Iron Man was going to be the center of it, I would have laughed you out of the room.
Right.
I read Iron Man comics back, and, like, I like Iron Man as a character, but he was never, before the MCU, Iron Man was never anything more than a B-tier character at best. That is, like, 100% real. There's, like, that was never a guy that would be like, this is what we're going to sell the franchise.
Sure, yeah.
But with Deadpool, like, it's funny. One of the and we'll get to Deadpool and Wolverine soon, but one of the criticisms that Deadpool and Wolverine has is that, oh my God, it's just chock full of references. This is only for people who have been watching everything. And while that is definitely, there's truth to that, and that is a valid criticism. You could say that about pretty much the entire Deadpool series. There's not even the first one. So much of the humor depends on you having seen Deadpool and Wolverine and being somebody who knows how badly they messed up Deadpool's character in Wolverine.
X-Men Origins.
X-Men Origins. I'm sorry.
No,
I just said Deadpool and Wolverine.
You're right.
No, in X-Men Origins, the 2009 film, so much of the humor, and most of it's little sight gags, but there's also lots of asides Ryan Reynolds throws in. Like, so much of the humor of that is about how, oh my God, we're finally getting the Deadpool movie that the character deserves.
And Ryan Reynolds was born to play this character. And he's been auditioning for Deadpool since, like, Van Wilder, honestly.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He's been perfecting that persona, that voice, the witty, snarky comments, you know, like, he is that character. Or, like, in the way that what made Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man work was the meta narrative around Robert Downey Jr. as a human being, right?
Yeah,
as an actor,
that was his comeback.
His redemption arc, right? Matched up with what people came to think of with Tony Stark, even though that's like none of that was Tony Stark, right? That's what Robert Downey Jr. brought to the character And I think intentionally playing with the public perception of him,
100%,
and
yeah.
same with Ryan Reynolds, honestly, like to another level, right? Because we get into the meta, this is meant to be a joke and a parody kind of stuff. But back to your comment about like, the criticism of Deadpool and Wolverine. Actually, you know what? Let's back up further to X-Men Origins for a second.
Oh boy.
First half of that movie, great, right?
Okay.
Like it really sets up some promising stuff. The second half of that movie, no. You know what I mean? It just took a dump on like the character of Deadpool, the Wolverine origins, all of that, right? And yeah, people were upset. Ryan Reynolds apparently was very upset, the story goes. And then spent whatever, decade or more trying to
Actively
do his,
campaigning
do it right.
Yeah.
With Deadpool and Wolverine, that criticism, fine, fair, right? Chock full of cameos and references, and you need to be paying. But it's meant to be a joke. It's doing all that tongue-in-cheek, not to be taken seriously. That same criticism can be applied to your Spider-Man No Way Home, which is meant to be taken seriously, and I think because of that, works less. Before the show, off mic, I was mentioning to some of the people here that in Spider-Man No Way Home, there's like a 30-second pause when Andrew Garfield shows up for audience applause.
Yeah.
That is not going to age well. They are building movies for clapping, instead of making good art, making good narrative. You know what I mean?
And you could feel it a lot in Deadpool and Wolverine too, like that sequence where they meet. And look,
but they play with it. You know what I mean? They know that they're doing, and how stupid it can be.
It's fun in the theater to do that.
Sure,
like,
absolutely.
Because you're right. Like No Way Home, like I totally agree with you. Like it's so painfully obvious. And in home, I've never watched No Way Home in home video, so I like at home. So I don't. But like in the theater, I was having. Are you kidding? I clapped it crazy when they had the Matt Murdock cameo because I love I'm a huge fan of the Daredevil comics character. I haven't even watched the show, although I do love the actor who plays Daredevil in that show because he was great on Boardwalk Empire. But and I've been meaning to watch it, but like I love Daredevil so much that him having a cameo in the movie, and it's like that's the thing. I don't know. I'm clapping like a trained seal, but there is some fun to that. I don't hate that. I'm not such a snob that I want to like criticize people having that fun
because there's that little boy in us, right? And like it doesn't have to be a boy, right? Just because we were little boys, right? That wants all of his action figures in the same sandbox.
It's
you know what I mean? You want to see your Daredevil and your Spider-Man, like in something, on an adventure, right? That's cool. And this legal business stuff that exists outside these movies is the biggest villain of them all. Greed, corporate greed is the real supervillain here, boys and girls.
What a shock.
Which, I want to, based on some stuff we were mentioning, I want to get to for sure, right? But, all right, Deadpool movies at a clip, and then we can get into Deadpool and Wolverine more if you want, or go another route. But I like that each of at least the first two movies, tries to set it up to be its own subgenre, separate from just superhero movie.
Yes.
Which the best superhero movies will do. Your Captain America Winter Soldier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we'll do that, where it's a superhero movie, but it's really an espionage thriller, right? And a good one, The Dark Knight. You know what I mean?
That's
it's
very
a comic book movie, but it's a well-made, suspenseful film,
Still holds up,
so there's that aspect happening as well,
Well, the first one it's directed by Tim Miller, who's half of the team that gave you John Wick, and I think they joke about that in the credits.
This is a love story. No, it's a monster movie. I noticed that in the first two movies where they keep telling you what kind of movie this is.
Yeah, very much so.
And I think
second
that
it's a family film.
Right. This is Deadpool 2 is a family film. I don't know. Deadpool 3 is a buddy cop movie. It's that. They don't say it though. It's not. I missed that it wasn't articulated, in the script, because it would have been a nice echo. But okay, second movie, family film. Third movie, buddy film. All of these movies self-referential, full of cameos, references, and things like that.
Very aware. I mean, it makes sense because Deadpool, even before the movies ever, one of the things that made Deadpool such an interesting character is that he is, as far as I know, the only Marvel Comics character who breaks the fourth wall consistently. He is aware that he is a comic book character. and that like
because DC Psycho Pirate knows, and maybe the Joker.
Depending on how insane he is.
Depending on how you want to interpret that and who's writing him. But yeah,
it's a
you
similar
may be right
thing.
about Deadpool.
Deadpool, like the whole idea is that his insanity reaches a level that he's able to.
Maybe Moon Knight, because it's DID with him, but I'm not super solid with the character. But go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't really aware of that. I haven't read much Moon Knight. I thought the series.
He's Batman with like multiple personalities.
Basically. Yeah, no, I have watched Oscar Isaac.
Gotcha. So that's my basic experience with Moon Knight as well.
But yeah, no. As far as Deadpool is most famously is at least the most well-known Marvel Comics character that is self-aware all the time. So that's what makes the fourth wall breaking so easy for the films, and it's what kind of makes the humor come out so effortlessly. Is because Ryan Reynolds, like you said, he's been perfecting that snarky voice. He's been perfecting his Wade Wilson delivery for years now before he ever got to actually do the character properly. So by the time we get to 2016 and this movie has come out, he's like ready and raring to go. And that confidence and that comfort from a guy who has been training for this his whole life, more or less, it is felt immediately. And he's in the capable hands of a director who by that time was already made a name for himself as a guy who's great with action sequences and everything, which is perfect. I mean, the opening shot of like that freeze frame where he's in the middle of like killing 5 different henchmen guys. It's so fun. And then you get into the backstory, but they even do that in a way that it doesn't make you feel bogged down with it. Like
Christopher Nolan style, you know, where we're going to jump around into like, cause I thought about the first Deadpool movie, like what did like 2 days actually pass in the actual narrative of the plot from the freeway to the end of the movie? It's like 2 days, but you do cover years of this guy's life, but yeah, it's broken up in a way that you may not notice it.
Exactly. They jump around the timeline very well. The pacing is very solid. The jokes are just all over the place in a good way. Like he is going at a clip. I always love kind of towards the third act when we see Dopender again. Dopender being the cabbie who he befriends, and earlier in the film, Dopender has mentioned that he and his cousin are vying for the love of a woman, and we find out that talking with Deadpool has influenced Dopender a little too much, and he's got his cousin in the trunk of his car and is like possibly gonna kill him. And like, Colossus is like saying, "Oh, you can't do that," but then Ronald was like, "No, that's bad. I'm so proud of you." Like,
right. Yeah.
That like humorous moments like that, the way he interplays with the other characters, and also I believe it's Big Al is the name of his blind roommate who is an ex-coke addict and stuff like the way they really also. What it can't be understated here is how much this movie carves out its own identity by really leaning into its R rating. Because at the time, the MCU had already well established itself that the franchise was never, for the most part, never going to go above a PG-13.
Yeah.
Except I guess technically now that Fox... Now that Disney owns Fox,
technically,
Or is the Blade movie going to be R? I thought they said that was going to be PG-13.
We'll see if that movie ever comes out, because you heard Wesley Snipes in Deadpool and Wolverine, where he's like, "There's only been one Blade, and there's only ever going to be one Blade." And like the way this company is working right now, it looks like that might not be wrong. I don't know. Will we ever actually see this Blade project, these Midnight Sun project, like
there's gonna be a Midnight Sun movie?
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah!
They set it up at the end of Eternals. They had the new Blade character show up and talk to Jon Snow. Jon Snow.
Is that who's talking
Blade.
To him?
Yeah, and it's like it's setting up a Midnight Sun thing. Maybe it's setting up a Blade thing, and that Blade thing has been pushed back and has changed hands so many times. No one knows what's happening.
Well, what's his name behind True Detective? The last thing I heard was that. The guy who wrote the first 2 seasons,
the good one,
Nick Pizzolatto, yeah, exactly. Well, no, I liked the
most
season.
Recent one.
I didn't watch Night Country yet.
Okay,
but
it's all right.
The one that they had with Mahershala Ali.
That's 2, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was. I actually liked that one.
That's 3. I'm sorry.
3. I actually
2 is
liked
Vince
3.
Vaughn and and the other guy.
Which I remember being cold on at the time, but I have since turned around on.
I would give it another chance. The first season's the best though. It's super solid. McConaughey and.
Woody Harrelson. But they got Pizzolatto to write the script for Blade, and I don't know what that was the last update we heard.
Okay, we'll see what happens with that.
But Deadpool is such a commentary. It's like, I think Deadpool does acknowledge the fact that the business end of things kind of takes a lot of the soul out of superheroes, but Deadpool is like this conscious fight to try to keep the fun in there, to kind of acknowledge that this is silly, this is over the top, but like, come on, this is still so fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's silly, it's fun. If this was real, the people who do it would be crazy, right? Like, yeah, and as you're talking, I'm thinking about like the Deadpool character and how he's kind of like, again, even with the R rating, like he got a scrub. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where he, like, even the relationship with Blind Al is like a lot more mean spirited in the comic, and but like, or at least originally. But yeah, with that, right? Like Deadpool is still like, you know, oh, that's bad, but I'm so proud of you, right? Like an anti-hero, right? Like I think the movies are about trying to be the good guy and failing, right? Because this little boy is getting abused and I'm going to shoot the guy, right? Because that's terrible, right? I'm not sending him to jail with your floor legal system or what, right? Like he's an anti-hero, right? Often he's motivated by selfish reasons, and that resonates, I think, with audiences, in addition to the humor and the awareness of how silly and ridiculous some of the superhero stuff is, right? Again, it's that I'm out there to get mine, you know, that I think if I can do a good thing, be a good guy in the process, great, bonus, right? But I think that speaks to something too, you know, in why we like Deadpool, because he isn't a role model, right? But like we wish we were free in all the ways Deadpool was, like Tyler Durden, you know what I mean? Like I think there's that to it.
100%.
You know, he's super cool. You couldn't really be like him. You'd be locked up. You know what I mean?
Which in the second film he does get locked up for being who he is.
We see that too. All right, we got 13 minutes. Let's talk a little bit about Deadpool and Wolverine a little more if you'd like. And then let's talk about the business stuff if you want, because I think Deadpool and Wolverine is definitely about the business stuff on some level, you know? But
so I feel, because Deadpool and Wolverine, the narrative of that is that Deadpool, his timeline is going to be destroyed, and I believe he's trying to save his timeline. He's trying to save all the people, and it's funny because
10 people or something, right?
And it's funny because it almost, in a way, it does suggest some character growth. The fact that his entire narrative in this movie is about him trying to save others, and you could try to argue that the fact that he's trying to save his timeline is kind of selfish since it's his, but he's also trying to save all the people in it, so I don't think that counts. It's also interesting that you find out over the course of the film that he managed to get his girlfriend back, but she doesn't love him. Like they break up.
And that's like the real heart of the movie. That scene where like he's like, and she messes with his head, and she's like, oh, he remembers her saying something terrible, and then like when he admits the truth, like I gave up, I stopped trying. Like I'm like, oof, that is like real adult, like existential stuff you're gonna grapple with. That's like comes out of nowhere in this silly superhero movie. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's just like
the cancer subplot in the first movie hits you like a bus. You know what I mean? Where like all of a sudden everything shifts. As you, just to jump in, as you were saying that, right? Like it just in my head, I was ticking on like timeline, because that like you were talking about it, obviously, but like it's very in vogue with the current like phase, the multiverse saga. Right. And like I don't know, do you have any why
I think the multiverse stuff, it's
because I get Deadpool dealing with multiverse because everyone else is dealing with multiverse, but why multiverse, you know?
I think, well, first of all, that is one. It's a fun thing to kind of play with on a creative level. It's one of the reasons the comic book Marvel Comics and DC Comics have done it for years. That's why they have alternate realities and alternate Earths and phases. It's because it's fun. One of my favorite the What If comic series from Marvel it keeps popping up here and there for a reason. It's one of the most fun things to imagine. What if Peter Parker became the Punisher? What if this? What if that? It's cool stuff. But then let's be real. There is a very practical business side, which is the fact that when you're adapting this stuff for film, there are so many other outside factors that affect things that don't come into play when it's like just ink,
contracts, and who's going to play a character in a movie when he's already
the fact that actors age and eventually they're going to want to stop being this guy. You know, when you're just drawing,
you know?
yeah, when you're just drawing Deadpool, Deadpool is going to be Deadpool forever because he's just ink and paper. The minute you get an actual actor there, eventually that actor is going to have to stop. And it becomes a problem because then people get attached and there's all, or as we saw with the stuff with Kang, that character being set up as the big bad of the multiverse.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, real life issues took that actor's career down, and now he's not in the picture anymore. And they, as we saw from San Diego Comic-Con, they're now pivoting and doing something where Robert Downey Jr., who ended up being one of the most iconic heroes of the MCU, is now playing one of the most iconic, what they're banking on being one of the most iconic villains of its next cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the multiverse gives you a lot of latitude in terms of going back to these characters or trying to go at them from different timelines. And then when real life kind of pops in and messes things up, you have that middle ground to play with.
Yeah.
You know, I definitely think it's a very practical, like, how do we keep mining stories? It becomes a lot easier when you don't have just one timeline to go with.
You can do, there are, you know, you make anything you want. You know, like DC's doing that with their Batman stuff, you know, and what's in their universe and what's not, with the Matt Reeves movies, the Joker stuff, you know, like
exactly.
And that's probably better, like, honestly, you know, like that. Again, something can be said for consistency, right? A through line. Something also can be said for difference and variety, you know.
Exactly.
And let's make a campy Cape Crusader, you know, Batman, you know, like good old chap, you know, chum.
Or a Fantastic Four, like they're going to do, which is apparently going to be set in an alternate timeline of the 1960s.
Right, it's going to be retro.
And the director has been very upfront about the fact that he is not making this movie with any hard line. I mean, I'm sure that's something behind the scenes. I'm sure there's some things he still has to pay attention to.
Yeah.
But overall, he's been very clear that that the movie's made with the intention of just being a good Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah, because what happens is the bigger your franchise, the bigger your, I guess, shared universe becomes, the more bogged down it gets with baggage and rules and continuity, right? And yeah, that can be really limiting, you know, especially to keep track of from a planning stage, you know. But yeah, the Robert Downey Jr. casting choice will be interesting because what I said earlier about what worked so well with the Iron Man character and his public persona, they're going to have to make us forget that, I would think, in order to make this new character work. Now, again, in the idea of the multiverse, maybe not, right? Yeah. It might not be as heavy a lift as I'm anticipating, but how are we not going to see him as Tony? You know, like, you know what I mean? Because that's 15 years or whatever has been programmed into people now almost, you know? So I'd be interested to see how that plays out. With that, right? And I guess, you know, we'll kind of wrap up with this little bit of conversation is, yeah, you know all that stuff about the behind the scenes of these movies now, and so do I, and probably anybody listening to this, you know, knows something, maybe even more, right? Like, the backroom business part of the film production has become part of the film's narratives now, you know? And I think that's interesting. And I think Deadpool as a character franchise has always played with that, right? Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe ends with him killing the writers of the book Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe that you are currently reading, you know, and then the book's over because there's no one left to write it. But like, we're characters in this now, right? Deadpool is pulling us into this universe, another world in the multiverse, right? Because it isn't a magic mirror, right? And I'm thinking about our Real Reflections name, right? Cinema isn't a magic mirror, right? It can be that one screen, right? But what it really is the funhouse, right? Of mirrors, infinite mirrors reflect, like, it's that, and that's where we are, I think, with multiverse, you know? And yeah, maybe it speaks to something about our how we feel about our place in our current reality, you know, and the way things are going. And it's a wish for difference, better. You know, how often in the past, I don't know, half a decade did people make jokes about this being the darkest timeline?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I was just about to say,
we're in the TV shows, we're in the movies. Those are those are quotes from movies.
We're in the dystopia, exactly.
And dystopia isn't real. It's a literary genre, but we want to put ourselves in that instead because it's not real life because we can't maybe deal with real life. Yeah, I don't know, right? I don't want to get too heavy, too dark with too little time left, but.
Because
there's
it's hard
that
for us
business
to do
component.
that. Yeah. It's
But
hard.
also there's that fascination with these multiverses and the infinite mirrors they're giving us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's this desire to, I think especially because it's, oh God, you want to get dark.
Get dark. You got 5 minutes, Chris.
Yeah. Because listen, as you get older, as life progresses, and especially now we're in a world where things are, I mean, I always want to believe there's a light at the end of the tunnel, but right now we're definitely in some dark times in socio-political terms. And those of us who are in our 30s, for us getting older and older, it's like, you know, your possibility, it's like when you're young, everything's wide open. It's like what you could do. The world's
at your feet.
But once you're an adult and you have locked into certain responsibilities and made certain choices, your path narrows quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, the most simple thing is a multiverse. When you daydreaming about multiverse options and who am I in this timeline and where would I be in this, it's the simplest, it's the best thing we have to just, it's the medicine to help us take down accept the fact that, yeah, like this is the path I'm walking. And at this point, there's really no way to deviate from it, you know, unless some external force shakes it up, or unless I just do something to mess it up. I'm pretty much going down this path. So I think that's why people like to think about, because you just feel like your options are dwindling.
It's our desire for choice and freedom, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
What cell phone you want? You want an Android or an iPhone? What party do you want to vote for politically? You want Republican or Democrat?
Exactly.
You want this or that, right? Everything's, you know.
The supposedly limitless choices we have are like what color case you want,
you know,
on the 1 or 2 devices you're allowed to get.
You know?
That's disheartening. That's a real crushing thing to have to deal with. So I think that's where the multiverse stuff comes in. I think where Deadpool comes in is in terms of being someone who's self-aware, is that, you know, we really like to always see self-awareness as power. If you are aware of the machine,
you're in on the joke.
If you're aware of the machinations, if you're aware of where things are going in that regard, you have some power. You might not be able to beat it altogether. You probably won't. It's not like Deadpool.
Yeah, you can't beat it.
Deadpool still struggles against the things. It's not like knowing he's in a comic book movie saves him.
Yeah, we are all going to be ground and crushed by the machine. All you can do is recognize that and like laugh at it, you know? Like it's coming, you know? And like the guy who thinks it isn't coming, like he's the fool, you know? Like he's the crazy one.
Don't listen to this episode on a rough day, folks.
But yeah, right? Like these movies are fun, and they remind us of the freedoms and choices that I think are so important and influential to personal fulfillment in life, you know?
Absolutely.
And I want Ryan Reynolds to make these movies forever and be my best friend and all this other stuff, right? Because he just seems like a great guy.
I mean, he's gonna, I like him and Hugh Jackman now. I mean, that was another one of the great running gags in Wolverine and Deadpool was like, you're gonna be doing this forever.
Yeah, no, it's great. And again, I hope they're really friends and it's not all just an act for the camera, but I'm like, yeah, I love their dynamic. I love all of the marketing banter they were doing.
Did you read that I read somewhere that he said he accepted the role before he even told his agent. He had to tell his agent, like, hey, by the way, just so you know, I'm doing this. So I guess he was into it. Either that or he just really needs the payday. I don't know.
Well, he did make the joke he was going through a divorce.
Yeah, I mean, that'll do it.
Yeah, and they played with that. And the Ben Affleck joke was in there too, you know, with the divorce reference. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry. It's like, no, it's fine. So, yeah, you know, some groaners sneak in there. But, okay. Well, you know what? Like, I approached this and I was like, man, like, there's so much going on in Deadpool. I don't know that we're going to really be able to, like, find a thread to pull out. But yeah, right. I feel like we did a decent job with making sense of some of this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's, well, you know, because they're very silly movies and deliberately so. So it's not like something where there's going to be possibly a meaty discussion about like, oh, some particular socio-political thing. But I think it does reflect where we as a people are right now in terms of how we're feeling and what we want our entertainment to help us with.
Yeah, and how long can they keep this going, right? Because we're 2 decades now into it.
There's a lot of people who don't think the MCU's got the same juice it used to. So
no, that the superhero fatigue is, I feel like, all you hear anybody talking about.
It's real.
We're hoping for a renaissance maybe, but you know, all right, prediction then. Yeah, we're like 10 years out from DC versus Marvel. You know, they're gonna have to do that. This is the only way you can keep this
What does that even look like, though?
Disney owns everything.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Real Reflections, Cinema's Societal Mirror. I'm Kevin.
I am Chris.
Thank you for joining us. Keep listening, keep watching, and we'll talk to you next month.
Yep, we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one out there. We'll see you at the movies, I guess.
Chimichanga.
Chimichangas. Time to make those chimichangas.
Good night.